It's this aspiration, this extraordinarily powerful, courageous aspiration based on the development of incredible love and compassion. It's not equivalent. It's not the equivalent. It's the result of love and compassion. It eventually leads one to having this bodhicitta, this marvelous shift, this paradigm shift in the mind, where now only others are what you think about. So the way, when you start to listen to the qualities of a bodhisattva, we look at the practices that enable us to accomplish bodhicitta. From the ordinary worldly point of view, it sounds kind of insane. It's like a bit, almost like mental illness. We have no reference point, anything remotely like this. The only equivalent is if you hear about, like in the Christian teaching, you hear about the saints, especially the Catholics, and I love their saints. And who, I mean, not most people don't think, oh, I want to become a saint. You tend to think you're born like this and you're just kind of special. Well, bodhisattvas are like that. They're over the top, ridiculously, outrageously full of wisdom and love and compassion. They only exist for the sake of others when you've got it. So, of course, these practices that we're going to discuss are the ones that enable us to accomplish this state of mind. So practicing the wisdom wing, and then eventually, controlling your body and speech, abiding by the laws of karma, living in vows, purifying every day, and then going to the next level of practice, the middle scope, and looking at your mind, unpacking and unraveling delusions, understanding the root cause of our suffering, and eventually realizing emptiness. This is the so-called wisdom wing. And you're a pretty astonishing person by now if you accomplish this arhat, this enemy destroyer, person who's cut the root of all suffering and doesn't need to be reborn again in samsara. They've achieved that liberation. So you add bodhicitta to that, the two wings of the bird, that helps you accomplish Buddhahood. This much more outrageous, astonishing levels of realization. So this doesn't mean when you become an arhat that you haven't got love and compassion. You've got incredible love and compassion. You've only got that. That's the thing. Again, this is unusual for us in our modern psychology. We don't think like this, so it takes us a while to hear this. The one you've got to that level, having practiced the wisdom wing, the Hinayana part of the path, and you've finally realized emptiness, you have literally removed from your mind all traces of I, all traces of this unhappy neurotic I. All traces of, therefore, attachment, all traces of anger, anxiety, neurosis, fears, depression, anxiety, arrogance, all these words we're so familiar with, they would be gone. This is hard to imagine in ordinary Western psychology, which does not posit such a possibility. It sounds insane. But this is the fundamental point that Buddha is making. That he has this unique point of the Buddha that he has found from his own direct experience that all these states of mind are not at the core of our being and can be removed. Already you're a pretty incredible person. So if you've achieved that liberation and all the delusions have gone from your mind, you have to ask the question, well, what's left in my mind? Well, guess what? Love, compassion, empathy, wisdom, self-confidence. You can't imagine the astonishing qualities that you've accomplished. But the Bodhisattva path is like putting an extra 1 billion% of those, adding an extra 1 billion% to the love and compassion. Much more powerful levels of love, infinitely more powerful levels of love and compassion. That's the emphasis in the compassion one. So another way of describing the difference between the two approaches, the main enemy in the mind, the Buddha is telling us in the wisdom wing, is attachment. This state of mind, as Lama Yeshe says, I can tell you about attachment for 1 entire year. You will never begin to understand it until we start working deeply inside ourselves and building up a practice. It goes to incredibly subtle levels, So the main problem is attachment. This bottomless pit of emotional hunger, this dissatisfaction, this emotional hunger that never satisfied, always wants something more, then also expects more, wants more, manipulates to get it, control, and then possessiveness. All of this is the function of attachment, this bottomless pit of emotional hunger that's never satisfied. This is really quite subtle. That's the main enemy. So then on the compassion wing, the main enemy for it, there's a different emphasis. The emphasis here is we're trying to make this shift in the mind where we're finally only thinking of others, only wanting to benefit others. So the main emphasis, the main problem here, that's the obstacle to that, they call it, I mean, we call it selfishness, putting self first. They call it, Tibetans call it, maybe it's Indian as well, self-cherishing. Selfishness, putting self first. It's really hard to even hear those words. Putting self first. I mean, the first instinct is to be defensive. Well, excuse me, isn't that normal, we'd say? And it is normal. And there's no equivalent, really, in modern psychology or neuroscience, techniques to enable us to get rid of putting self first. We would literally consider that to be mental illness, a serious problem that is not recommended. So it's hard to hear. It's shocking. And it's kind of like, it kind of feels like, excuse me, that can't be possible. What are you talking about? You know? And therefore it's unbelievably hard to recognize it. So in the Lamrim, there's all these different, there's two main sets of practices that for accomplishing this bodhicitta, like the end result of these series of techniques. And there's another one that's a combination of both. There's about 11 points. Pamonka Rinpoche in Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand talks about this. So 11 little stages of development, 11 little meditations, 11 little points, each of which leads to the next, leads to the next, leads to the next, that all culminate in the accomplishment of bodhicitta. So already in the wisdom wing, you're cutting away at the delusions, you're smashing the delusions, you're lessening attachment, lessening anger, lessening neurosis. You're already becoming more content and fulfilled yourself. But inevitably, because you're lessening attachment and anger and self-centeredness, inevitably you're getting closer to others, naturally. But here you're radically working on that aspect of it, making this huge shift in the mind, you know. And you could say, you see, this is why compassion wing is said to be more advanced. It's a bit of a surprise to us because, you know, we all like spiritual teachings and many people become Buddhists because they like to talk about compassion. We think we're so compassionate, but the level of compassion we have is actually extremely limited if we compare it with this view of what we're capable of. And the only way to understand these higher levels of compassion, these more outrageous levels of compassion, the only way to understand those is by understanding in the wisdom wing the Four Noble Truths. And that's the first noble truth, which is Buddha saying there is suffering. The second one is there are causes. The third is you can get rid of them. And the fourth is how to do it. And all the stages of practice in the Lamrim are that method to how to do it. And the only level of, so then in the first noble truth, there are three, this is back in the wisdom wing now. There are three levels of suffering. And the first one we all know is, Buddha would call it the suffering of suffering, striking in your face suffering. And simply speaking, it's when the bad things happen. So that's the only way we would describe suffering. And therefore, when we get to the compassion wing, The only people we have compassion for are those with the suffering of suffering. It's when the bad things happen. That's when the animals get hurt or abused, and the children get hurt, and people get hurt, and wars and terrorism and stealing and killing and lying. People who suffer from that. That's the suffering of suffering. But it's only the first level of suffering, because that's the only one we think about. Then our compassion is necessarily extremely limited. Only for those for whom bad things happen, because that's our level of compassion. That's our level of understanding suffering. So if we understand in the Four Noble Truths, the 3 levels of suffering, and recognize those in ourselves, and want to go beyond all of those levels of suffering, which is the way Buddha describes, then we are able to now, on the compassion wing, to have much vaster compassion for every single sentient being. In other words, not just the victims, but also the harmers, also all the happy people and the rich people. So we now don't have compassion for happy people. Why should we? They're not suffering, we'd say, only according to this gross level of suffering. And then we absolutely do not have compassion for the pedophiles and the murderers and the harmers and the torturers and the animal harmers. We absolutely do not. We are utterly confused to think, why on earth would I want to have compassion for them? What are you talking about? And the only reason we ask that is because we haven't gone into the subtler levels of suffering. Because Buddha's point is, when we take on these 3 levels of suffering, every being in the universe is experiencing all of these at one point or another, some more than others. But all of us have experienced all of these in countless past lives. So that means we have to go back in the wisdom wing, we have to understand the First Noble Truth. Then we are capable of doing these stages of practice that culminate in bodhicitta. So right now, it's very natural for us, when we see a person being harmed, instantly we have compassion for the person being harmed, but the next instant we have to find who caused it, and then we get angry with them. So here we're trying to understand, when we understand the subtle levels of suffering, or we understand karma, then we'll be able to have compassion for the harmers as well. So understanding karma helps us with that one. In other words, I always tell this story of these young Tibetan nuns. In 2003, when I was based in San Francisco running the prison project, Richard Gere here in New York, no, not here, in New York, he invited His Holiness the Dalai Lama to teach, and he also decided to do a kind of like a conference for people who'd been in prison, who had then been released. So he invited about 20 former prisoners, all of whom had done some kind of meditation in prison. And some of the people I knew were invited, whom I'd worked with. And a few people like me who were working with people in prison were also invited. And it was a very moving day, very wonderful. They all talked about their suffering. There was a whole bunch of Americans, you know, black and white and male and female, Puerto Rican, Mexican, whatever, all discussing their suffering in prison. And then they met His Holiness. It was a very wonderful day. So Richard Gere also invited 2 young Tibetan nuns who'd been tortured and sexually abused in prison in Tibet. So this is a really good way to describe what I'm trying to get at here about how we all suffer, which is explained in the wisdom wing when we understand karma, and therefore why we harm others. So these young women, nuns, you know, like brought up in Tibet, and this is what we've got to understand. I say it repeatedly, it's important to keep remembering. This view of karma, especially in Tibet, where they've been practicing intensively Buddhism for 1,200 years, you know, it came straight from the Buddhism in India. So it's been this concept of karma, this concept of reincarnation and karma is absolutely, it's in the bones of Tibetans, in exactly the same way that, say, neuroscience or let's say Christianity, for example, are in the bones of our being in our culture. That's just what we're brought up with. It's your default mode, you know, whichever one it is for you. So karma and reincarnation for Tibetans, and then indeed the Buddhists before Tibet, it was just totally the way the world was. It's just natural. I mean, it's a brand new idea to us. We never heard about it until we met Buddhists. So for them, it's the most natural thing in the world. They're brought up with it. So what do you want to understand from that? The profound difference in their minds, things they take naturally, and they just take it as a given, you know. They just automatically know they've had past lives. They accept that. And they automatically therefore know whoever you meet, you've got a karmic connection with them. Whoever's been kind to you in the past is because you've been kind to them. And whoever harms you, you've harmed them. That's a given for them. It's not a surprise like for us. In the same way we take neuroscience naturally, they take this naturally. I can't stress this enough. So that brings a profound effect in a person's life. You interpret the world completely differently, which if we are Buddhists now, is what we're trying to do by learning it and thinking about it and applying it every day, which is really the hardest one for us. So these young women were talking about their suffering. So, I mean, my way of putting it is this, that, you know, all the Americans having the materialist view or having the view of Christianity or whatever, one of the major reasons we suffer in our daily lives, for which we do not have an answer, is why bad things happen to us. Hear this point. It's massive for us, especially when you look like you've never met that person before, and out of the blue, you get accused of murder and you didn't murder. Out of the blue, someone steals from you. Out of the blue, someone rapes you. Out of the blue, someone's mean to you. So it's the most terrifying way that we suffer because we don't have an explanation for why is this happening to me. And if you check the nightmare of the suffering we experience at the hands of others harming us, and therefore when we see it in the outside world, it's why is this happening? That's why we suffer, because we don't have an explanation. Now, I'll tell you, if you've got real devotion in God, like the Muslims, let's say, Lama Zopa said, Lama Yeshe said one time, if we had as much faith as the Muslims, we'd be enlightened already. You know, such confidence in the Buddha, we'd be totally enlightened. So I remember, you know, one Muslim mummy and daddy in Malaysia whose daughter had been killed in an airplane accident, went down the ocean, you know, and they were asked in the news report, how do you feel about the death of your daughter? Well, they said something like, we are peaceful. She belongs to God, and he is now taking her back. Now, for ordinary materialists, this is like mental illness. We just think they're mad. Even many Christians think this is ridiculous. But I'm telling you, if you philosophically have that view, for me, that is utter logic. If there's such a being as a creator who is perfect, who made the universe, therefore he must know what he's doing, therefore made all of us and knows exactly what he's doing, he has got a plan. He keeps his plan in his pocket, and we're happy with that. So, of course, if you're really practicing that view, you would be content. You would know God knows what he's doing. Who am I to criticize? And I have faith in God. I think that's an amazing way to live your life. I would never criticize that. And look at the consequence. They didn't go crazy. They're not tearing their hair out saying, why did this happen? And then finding who to blame and sue and never getting over it because of the grief and the rage, which is how we suffer in our culture. Think about it. Because materialism, with respect, does not have an answer yet. Why bad things happen to good people. They also don't know why good things happen to bad people. That should even make us more furious, you know. We don't have an answer. Well, Buddha has an answer. Christians have an answer. Muslims have an answer. Buddha has an answer. And these young women, being Buddhist, that's internalized in their minds since they were little. Now, this is the point I'm trying to get to. Anyone in that meeting, I remember it vividly, when these young women were telling their experiences, it was clear to the Americans they weren't angry. Now listen to this. Analyze what anger is. When we start to go deep into our mind and really look at the attachment and really look at the anger, we hear the conceptual stories that they're saying. We don't just feel the physical pain. We hear like anger's like a story in your head, like a roommate. What's anger saying? You listen to this. Anger is saying, how dare you do that to me? I don't deserve it. And then when we have compassion for the little animals and the little children, we say exactly the same thing. That's the basis of our anger when we hear about a person harming somebody. How dare you do that to them? They don't deserve it. This is so embedded in our culture and in our minds. But these young women don't have that view. They have an answer to why it's happening. Those Muslim couple had an answer to why their daughter died. So they weren't angry. You've got to hear this. So these young women, they were sad, there were tears, but they were not angry. And that's really confusing to us, you know. You think, no, they're probably suppressing it. No, anger's a philosophical view. It's an assumption that a bad thing happens with no cause. That's why we go crazy, because we think there's no cause in me. And that's the important point. You know, if Margaret beats me up, and then when she gets arrested, all the psychologists will give all the reasons why Margaret beat, but they don't give the psychological reasons why she beat up me. It explains why Margaret beat up, because her mother hurt her, or her mean sister Anne beat her up. So we say now that's why Margaret beats people up. But it doesn't make me any happier, does it? But hey, what about me? Why me? It doesn't answer that. There's no answer for that. Well, the Buddha's view is karma, you know. So these young women have that view in their mind naturally. So that means it informed their ability to deal with their suffering while they're in prison, being tortured and abused. It enabled them to practice strongly. They knew it was due to karma. They purified their karma. Of course, it was difficult. Give them a key, they would have run away. And at the end, as one of them said quietly, and of course, we had compassion for our torturers, because we know we must have harmed them in the past. So this is the view of karma and all the good things that happen as well. So instead of the view of, well, it's just good luck, someone gives me $100, aren't I lucky? In other words, we don't factor in ourselves at all. I'm just this lucky recipient of a bit of good luck. There's no sense that I'm involved in it. There's no sense that I created the cause to have that. That's also what we think about bad luck. It just happens randomly and we're not involved in it. Whereas the view of karma puts you in the center of your experiences. You are part of it. It's a dependent arising. Someone could not possibly give you even 1 cent if you hadn't created the cause by your own past generosity. So when good things happen, if you have the view of karma, you don't just take it for granted. You every day you see your life, you see the food in the fridge, you see the money in the bank, you see your mortgage being paid for, you see your friends. You are continually delighted with your own, not just for the universe, not to God, because you're not talking about a creator, but to your own past hard work, your own past virtue. You never forget it. And therefore you continue to practice more virtue because you know you want happiness. So when suffering happens, you're able to own that as well, take responsibility. And that would have informed these young women's practice, which is why they stayed sane and came out of that prison, no doubt, with more compassion than less. Of course, we had compassion for our torturers because we knew we had harmed them in the past. But this is the crucial one now. And because we know that they will suffer in the future. That's the basis of having compassion for the harmers, the pedophiles, the wicked ones. There's karma between that group. There's karma between me and my lousy husband. From 57 lives ago, I must have harmed him, now experiencing the fruits of my past actions. And he is now creating causes for future suffering. That's the reason, the one precise reason to have compassion for those who harm others. But our trouble is when we hear compassion, we think it's kind of sentimental and kind of gooey. We think we've got to pat him on the head and go, oh, the poor thing can't help it. Let him keep abusing children. No. Compassion is powerful. The compassion we're describing here is driven by wisdom. It's got strength in it. It's not weak and sentimental, which is how we think of compassion. It's based in wisdom, which is what you get from doing the first levels of practice, working with karma and working on your mind. And as His Holiness says, compassion's not enough. You need wisdom, as we've been talking in the week. Or as Lama Zopa puts it, meaning well is not enough. You need wisdom. So this level of compassion we're describing is huge, and it's absolutely based in understanding the Four Noble Truths and karma and the mind. Without that, without the wisdom wing first, this level of compassion is impossible to understand, and therefore impossible to cultivate. Impossible. This is why it comes more advanced. This is why it's university level. It's got to come after junior school and high school, just like math and everything else. You don't just leap into university math. You'll be confused. It's a much more powerful level of compassion, rooted in wisdom, which is rooted in understanding karma and rooted in understanding the mind. And rooted, of course, in understanding your own suffering and the causes of your suffering. And then you look around and you go, my God, we're all in the same boat. So that takes time for us. But for those young women, that was natural. It would have been shocking for those Americans to hear that. Shocking. That does not exist in our culture. It feels weird, you know. It feels like you just became victim. You blame it. And this is curious. We have this view. If you're a victim in a lousy relationship, you got to like say you've got a husband who beats you up every day. This is such a typical thing. To be this victim who has no self-confidence and almost enables the brutality, because we don't have any self-confidence. Oh, he must love me really, you know, and you blame yourself. The really serious victim mind blames themselves. This is not this view. It's got nothing to do with that. It's a powerful view, strong, powerful, rooted in incredible wisdom, which is rooted in practices of karma and working on your mind, understanding the logic of karma and the mind, understanding yourself. Then we can understand other people. Okay, so this practice of accomplishing bodhicitta is as I said, is described in kind of a particular grouping of little techniques called. There's 11 of them. You know, so the first one is this cultivation of an attitude. It's like the foundation of developing love and compassion. This is cultivation of an attitude that's called equanimity. So as I mentioned, you know, over here a couple of days ago, there's different uses of the word in Buddhist practice. The very first level in the wisdom wing, as you're progressing, working on your own mind, lessening your attachment, lessening your anger, lessening your resentment, lessening your laziness, lessening all your neuroses, you become more stable in yourself, which means more content, more fulfilled, more happy. That equanimity is when you're more steady, not up and down like a yo-yo, you know? That's equanimity within yourself as a consequence of your own practice. But the equanimity described here on the compassion wing is in reference to seeing other sentient beings. So here, this equanimity, this foundation practice upon which we can build love, compassion, great compassion, and finally bodhicitta. It's a very precise attitude. This is my way of saying it. You know, a heartfelt recognition that a friend, an enemy, and a stranger are equal to each other from one point of view. That friend, enemy, and stranger, and there's no fourth category of sentient being, because these are the three poisons, remember, which we deal with back in high school. Here, we're now seeing them in reference to sentient beings. So if we see the world through the lenses of the three poisons, if we see sentient beings through the lenses of attachment, aversion, and indifference, What we are seeing is a friend, an enemy, and a stranger. There really is no fourth category. And the whole of the universe is like this. Ants, rats, monkeys, you name it. And this drives everybody. This is something we do not question. So let's look at what a friend is and what an enemy is and what a stranger is. Let's define it. Because what we're trying to do here in this practice is get beyond that way of labeling to at least start with a heartfelt recognition that from their point of view, these three people's point of view, you get yourself out of the equation and you try to see these three people separate from you, not through the lenses of your needs. And you see that they are absolutely equal from this one point of view, that they equally want to be happy and they equally do not want suffering. This is really hard to get to. There's many layers of assumptions in here that we've got to unpack to look at the logic of this. It's very confusing. And this is the starting point, the ground, the foundation upon which we can now build love, compassion, great compassion, and eventually Bodhicitta, which is this powerful aspiration that only wants all sentient beings to be happy and a determination to never give up for as long as time exists, perfecting my own mind, becoming a Buddha, so that I'm qualified to benefit every single one of them. I mean, this is insane. So this equanimity is the foundation. So now, the way we are now, being samsaric person, we divide the universe into these three groups. We have people we're close to, we're attached to one degree or another. Could be our pussycat, could be our sister, could be our boyfriend, could be anybody. We all know we've got different people we're attached to, and they're people we're close to. Naturally, there's a closeness there, some more close than others. So attachment is the view towards that person. Well, first of all, there's a strong karmic connection from this past history with each other. So you come together either as siblings, or you come together as boyfriend and girlfriend, or you come together as pet and owner. I mean, we can see the relationships, can't we? And there's some people we have a closer relationship with, some people we think of more, which is part of the sign of attachment. Some people we take care of more. So attachment is this delusion that over-exaggerates their deliciousness, over-exaggerates their role in making me happy. That's attachment. A mother for her baby. You know, we can see this. We think of them all the time. So no, that's the sign of attachment. And then on top of that, we do have love for them. We do have compassion for them, but that's usually only that group. The only people we really have love and compassion for are those we're attached to. In fact, they only so strongly, we almost assume these are the same thing. We only want to be happy, which is a definition of love. May you be happy. We only want to be happy, those we're attached to, and we're only attached to those we want to be happy. So when Fred gives me up for a younger version, I mean, my love will turn off like a tap, won't it? It'll be so painful. The thought, oh, may he be happy, is not usual. You'd know, it's like, I hope he suffers. We know this. Even a person slightly mean to us, the pain is intense. So of course we don't love them. We don't want them to be happy. If we do, we have to work on it. But we're talking about spontaneous natural responses. So we have friends. Friend here is the term we use for objects of attachment. We do have love and compassion for them. But as we'd say in our culture, it's got strings attached. It's contingent upon them fulfilling my attachment. So, if you have a dog that bites you every day, I mean, even if you're the kindest person on the planet, it'll be quite hard for you, to really continue to want to be with them close if they're going to bite you all the time because they've gone crazy, It'd be very hard. You can have compassion for them. Or if a husband beats you every day, or a wife beats you every day, somebody. I mean, think simple examples in the world. It doesn't come naturally that we just feel happy with them, we feel close, we have affection. It's just not, it's natural. It doesn't have that. We don't have that. So in other words, the love and compassion we do have at the moment is usually for that category. And we don't question it. In fact, it seems mean to question it. Because Buddha's telling us we can have compassion for everybody, love for everybody. It's kind of exhausting. I mean, look how hard it is to have love one person. You mean I've got to love everybody? I mean, it's just tiring to think about it. You don't know where to go with that, you know? What are you talking about? This is what we're talking about here. Let's look at the logic of it. Then you've got the next group, which is called, we might use the term enemy. We don't. But it's a good term for the object of aversion. The rat, the cockroach. Certain animals, but just the name freaks us out, you know. Spider. Everyone's different, of course, but there are some creatures, aren't there, that we have, and this is what's fascinating. You see, in general with karma, the kind of karma called experiences similar to the cause, which is usually the way we are seen and treated by others, is the relationships we have. We can see some animals, especially some creatures, just the word spider for some people, they have a complete panic attack. So full of fear and disgust, they can't believe it. Lice, rats, cockroaches. It fills us with horror. This is what's fascinating. The extent to which when a person looks at us, the extent to which they see us as nice, for example, is the extent to which we have been kind to them in a past life. Equally, the extent to which, you know, like a cockroach, even the word cockroach freaks us out, you know, generally speaking. That's the karma of a person who's done so much harm in the past that just being seen, hearing the name fills us with horror. And the first thing we want to do is smash it to death. That's the karma of that being. Can you imagine just walking out the street and people who look at you freak out, scream and hit you with a stick? Are you hearing me? That's poor cockroaches and rats. That's the karma they have got to be seen as so horrible. So that we put them in enemies, isn't it? Or people who harm us. The ex-husband who's mean, person at work who's unkind, who, you know, talks about you behind their back. People who really harmed us. And look at the world. I mean, this is a tragedy. Like I'm thinking about the war, like in the latest war, Russians and Ukrainians. These Russian boys, I mean, this is how karma works. This is how karma works, you know. These Russian boys, they're chucked into the army. They're working class boys. It's all the poor working class boys, isn't it? The aristocrats don't go and sit in the mud and kill people. They just give the orders. So these Russian boys, they're torturing people, tying them behind the back and torturing them or slaughtering them. This is hard to hear. That's, first of all, that's like the cockroach. The anger in their own mind and their karma from having been harmed in the past is so powerful that when they meet that person again, they don't even know why themselves. They are compelled to torture them. This is very hard for us to hear, because we feel like it's blaming the victim. That's exactly how karma works. You know, some people, they fall in love with each other, then they start to fight so badly, no wonder they kill each other. Some people just, they fall in love and then they start to hate each other so badly. You hear such stories, you know. That's from the mutual karma from 27 lives ago when they harmed each other, you know. You don't even know why you hate that person so much. It scares you, in fact. This is how karma works, you know? Between us. So we have enemies, people we don't like, people who harm us or whose politics we don't like, whom we feel distant from. It's aversion. It ain't attachment. So usually, think of it this way, the person whom we have aversion for is a personal karma, and they have indeed might have harmed us in this life as well. So the reason, the logic in ego behind why I hate them is because they don't do what my attachment wants. They're not nice to me. My ex-husband is really nice to his latest wife. I don't care. He's not nice to me. So it's obvious that ego, that not just the word ego is too broad, this attachment and the self-cherishing are absolutely fundamental to this view. We only adore and love and take care of and have compassion for those who fulfill attachment's needs. And then we have aversion for those who don't. That's the logic of friend and enemy. I mean, it sounds cruel to think about it because we just think, oh, it's normal. No, it's because we have attachment and aversion. So what's the third group? So-called strangers. What's that mean? Well, first of all, it's 99.999% of the universe. And who's in that category? Those who have neither harmed nor helped us, that we can remember. And how do we feel about them? Couldn't care less. Or as you Americans say, I never work it out, could care less. I can't work it out. Well, it has to be couldn't care less. I can't work out how I could care less. I could care less. No, maybe that makes sense, yeah. We say you couldn't care less. I could not care less. This should embarrass us, that we see the entire universe through the lenses of our own needs. Those who fulfill them, we adore them. Those who actively don't, we hate them. Those who do neither, we just don't care. We should be embarrassed. Because it's the universe, we just take it for granted. Are we communicating? So what Buddha's telling us, as exhausting as it sounds, we can go beyond this, and we can eventually, starting with equanimity, see that all enemies and friends and strangers are actually equal from the point of view of only wanting to be happy and not suffering. Nothing to do with what they do to me. And then we gradually go through these 11 techniques, developing love, compassion, great compassion, and finally, this incredible aspiration to never giving up, benefiting every single one equally for as long as time exists. I mean, this just saying it should make us tired, you know. That's what Bodhicitta is. That's what Bodhisattvas are like. Ridiculous. So we're being brave even thinking about it, aren't we? So what do you do with them when we start to even see the logic? Like, you know, even as I'm talking now, have to the left in front of you your beloved, your pussy, your doggy, your boyfriend, whatever you want there, your daughter, your son, you know, your husband, whoever you adore at the moment. And in front have a person you have aversion for, or an animal, for say, whatever, who doesn't act, who proactively doesn't do what your attacker wants. And then to the right have a person who's a stranger, about whom you're quite indifferent. They've neither touched, they've neither harmed you nor helped you. You can put their face there, you know. So the logic we're trying to prove is a very clear point. Is I use this, it's sort of a funny example, but I use it, try and hear what I'm saying. You know, let's say, you know, it's like Lou, for example. There's Lou. Let's say Lou is a stranger for me. I don't know Lou, but he's Margaret's friend. And Margaret tells me about this Lou down the road, you know. I always use this example. And Lou tells me that Margaret tells me, and Margaret knows me, and Margaret tells me that poor Lou gets migraines. Well, I don't know Lou. I've never met the bloke. I'm not trying to be polite. Oh, does he really, Margaret? I'm so sorry. Pass the tea. I try to be nice, but he's a stranger, for God's sake. Nothing is dragging me to have this incredible compassion for him because he hasn't touched my life. It's only normal. So he's a stranger and he gets migraines. So that's how I meet Lou and we fall in love and he moves me in, right? Now, and he suddenly goes from a stranger to friend category, doesn't he? Overnight. Now, look at how I feel. I'm full of love for Lou, full of compassion, work day and night, spend my money on trying to find methods to help him. Oh, poor Lou's got so, you know, and people go, Robina's so compassionate. Look how she takes care of Lou. We recognize that. Now Lou cheats on me and he chucks me out and moves Margaret in. Now he's in the enemy category. We all understand this. Now, the point is this. What we're trying to prove here with equanimity is that a friend, an enemy, and a stranger, a person I label friend, a person I label enemy, and a person I label stranger, what we're trying to prove is that from their point of view, they're equal, wanting to be happy, not wanting to suffer. So the way to prove this, because 1 minute we call him an enemy, stranger, 1 minute we call him a friend, and then we call him an enemy. And that's labels that I use. They're not painted on his forehead, It's not how he defines himself. It's my labels, all based on what he does for me. So ask Lou, when he's my stranger, how are your headaches? And he will tell you they're unbearable. Ask Lou, when he's my friend, how are your headaches? And he will tell you they're unbearable. Ask Lou, when he's my enemy, and he will answer the same. So all we're proving is that enemy, friend, stranger, they're just labels that we put on, all based on whether or not they make me happy. So we label them completely differently, these three people. It's the most, I keep saying we should be embarrassed that we do that. That's what we do with the delusions, So I couldn't care less when he's a stranger. I totally care when he's a friend because I've got vested interest now. And I hope he suffers from his headaches when he's my enemy, isn't it? So it's not rational. It's not logical because his headache is exactly the same, whether I label friend, enemy, or stranger on him. He doesn't feel the difference, enemy, friend, stranger. Suddenly when he's a stranger, it's not as if his headaches don't worry him. But we exaggerate. Attachment exaggerates his deliciousness. Aversion exaggerates his ugliness. And indifference exaggerates his nothingness. So we base all our actions on those three. So what Buddha's saying is, this is not a valid basis for wanting people to be happy. That's the definition of love. So right now, I want him to be happy when he's my friend, because he does what my attachment wants. I don't want him to be happy if I'm really not working on myself, when he harmed to me, and I couldn't care when he's a stranger. So what we're trying to do is shift the logic. So all we're trying to do here now is going from the self-centered reason for wanting a person to be happy or not, which is whether they help me, to what they want. When we can establish that friend, enemy, stranger, the labels I put on them, have got nothing to do with them in their heart. And in their hearts, when he was my stranger, my friend, and my enemy, there's not a millimeter of difference in his wish to be happy and his wish not to suffer. And that's all friends, all enemies, and all strangers. So this is a tough one, because one of the first responses we have, because we don't even know what to do with that. So they all want to be happy. So what? We can't work out what to do with that. The first thing we'll think is, well, once he's cheated on me, the first thing we'll say, when Margaret, Anne says, well, Robina, Lou wants to be happy too. I'll say, what do you mean Lou wants to be happy? My first thing I'll say is, he doesn't deserve it because he hurt me. Now, when he gives up Margaret, I won't care. Well, he's kind to Margaret. He's being kind to somebody. I don't care. He's not being kind to me. So we are utterly self-centered. We see the entire universe, and every sentient being is the same. We see through the lenses of our own needs. Those who fulfill our needs, whom we have attachment for, we adore them. Those who actively don't, we hate them. Those who don't do neither, we simply don't care. They don't come into our radar, So this is the first step. Get some logic. Recognizing they all want to be happy equally, then we begin to use that as the basis for gradually developing love, may you be happy, and compassion, may you not suffer, for all of them. This is kind of intense. And it's use logic. You see, these meditations are these are like they're using logic to argue with ego's instincts. There's not kind of gooey, kind of making yourself get gooey tears, oh, I'm so compassionate. Not like that. They're really to make stable, arguing with the lack of logic that ego has, and trying to get wisdom's logic, and then stabilizing that as we go along. This is intense stuff. This is the first step. before we get anywhere near beginning to actively want them to be happy and not want them to suffer. We're trying to see that they're all equal in their wish to be happy, in their wish not to suffer. So, of course, when it is people who abuse you, this is where it's confusing. What do you mean Lou wants to be happy? He just left me. He harmed me. Then we can't get past, so what do you mean he wants to be happy? What are we supposed to do with that? Well, that's where, of course, as we're progressing, as with more and more wisdom, we know that Lou, let's say the pedophile or the harmers or the murderers, you have to have a reason to want to help them want to be happy. They think, because of their habits karmically, that raping and torturing and jumping on little girls is the way to get happy because they're following attachment. So we know that. And then when we do want them to be happy, that the attitude of a bodhisattva is, what can I do to help? So you have to know the person's mind so you know how to help them. Not just pat them on the head, oh, they want to be happy, let them go. No, as you develop on the bodhisattva path, you utilize more and more wisdom. Wanting someone to be happy is compassion, but knowing how is what the wisdom is. That's why compassion is not enough. We've got to squeeze our brains for this stuff. It's quite precise, not just gooey, sentimental stuff. So then when you see a person harming another, instead of the first instinct of protecting, of feeling angry towards them, if you really have beginning to understand karma and the mind and the Four Noble Truths, you will see right there that person, due to their own past karma, is harming another and therefore is causing themselves terrible future suffering. That becomes the basis of eventually having compassion for them. But that just takes time. Because the view we have in the West is they're just evil. Put them in prison and hope they die. We don't have an explanation for why they harm people. We don't have a reason for that. We don't have a view of karma. Well, the only reason we know why people harm is because it was done to them when they were little. But when they haven't had it done to them, then we're really confused because we don't look into the mind of the person. We don't look into their tendencies, their personality traits, and where they came from. So we can't find them in the mother. That's why I always remember this example a couple of years ago when it was the 20th anniversary of those Columbine kids, that big school thing. And this one of the mothers of one of the boys had written her memoir, and I read an interview in the New York Times. It was incredible suffering for these poor mothers, the parents. The marriage broke up. It was unbelievable blame, people enraged. I mean, there were death threats because we have to blame somebody. And it always is the mum. It's the parents, isn't it? But that's when they saw it was just a puzzle to them, to people. We do our analysis, we do our research, we do our psychological, analysis of people. Nobody could see anything in these certainly I'm thinking of this one couple anyway, one of the parents. I can't know which kid it was. Just these nice, regular, conservative, white Christian parents. Nobody could find any evidence of anything they'd done wrong, but that infuriates us because we have to find someone to blame. They even dug up the brains of these boys to see what they could find, the evidence of why, because we're trying to find, the first thing we do when the police, the psychologists, we ask the question, why? So the analysis we do in the West is you look to the external events. That's the only place we can look. We don't have a view of karma, and we don't have the view that the person brings out, therefore don't have the view that those kids brought their own tendencies with them. That is not existing in our psychology. But this is what informs all the Buddha's teachings. So without this understanding of the Four Noble Truths, without this understanding of karma, there is no real sound basis for having compassion for anyone other than the people who make us happy. That's it. There's no logic. The compassion we're talking about here, so I can think of a mother. Pedophiles have mums, okay? Terrorists, monsters, rapists have mothers. And maybe the only people on the planet, you know, who have compassion for them is their mum. Because they remember this little boy, they gave birth to them. And what my point is this, the mother can see this kid torturing others, killing, you know, whatever they're doing now as a grown-up man, let's say. She can see that he's harming himself. That's the compassion we're talking about. And again, we will never see that unless we see our own mind. So try and think of anything you've ever done, ever, to harm another person. Sure, you're not a pedophile, you're not a terrorist, but we all do things to harm others. We're all selfish. We might lie. We might cheat on partners. We might kill the ants. Hear my point now. Anything we might have done that has harmed another. Now, check this out. What was in your mind? Well, I'll tell you what wasn't in your mind. Incredible love, incredible empathy, incredible affection, incredible kindness, incredible generosity, incredible patience. They were not prevailing at the time. What was prevailing? Annoyance, anger, laziness, resent, jealous, attachment. So when we can see the thing that what drives us to do anything to harm any other being, it's the delusions. So obvious, it's like staring at us. So when you know that for you, then can you only imagine the extent of the delusions in the mind of a pedophile who thinks of jumping on little girls all day? Or like my friend on death row in Kentucky, who thinks of torture all day. Can you imagine being born with that karmic tendency? So of course, it doesn't mean you pat him on the head, the poor fellow, or he can't help it, the poor thing. He can't help it. So you protect him from harming other people. That's intelligent. But then when you know the few things you've ever done wrong to harm anybody, it's because of your delusions, because of your own ego grasping, because of your attachment, your anger, your hurt, your jealousy, your resentment, your tendencies, your negative karmic imprints. That's why people harm others. So if you don't have that first and recognize that's why you suffer and have compassion for yourself, then you can't have compassion for others. And that's where the compassion comes in. The wisdom is explaining to you why that person is doing that. Then the compassion, because you know they're harming themselves, enables you to know, how can I help them? And often you see a person harming others, you know, but there's nothing you can do. Your hands are tied. This is often how it is. But if you do understand them, that's why the more you know your own mind, say you've got a grandchild, the more you know your own mind, your own attachment, your own anger, your own arrogance, the more you can see, and your own kindness and goodness, then the more you're able to see the mind of that child. But our trouble in our culture is we don't like to see bad qualities in a child. We have to blame the mother or the father for it. We're always looking for who did it to them. It's hard for us to think they came born with these tendencies. That's very painful for us because we want to think all children are innocent, you know. It's just naive. It doesn't fit with the Buddha's view of karma at all. I mean, Hitler was a child once. You cannot blame his Austrian housewife mum. God almighty. I'm sorry, it's a bit stretching it. Do you understand my point? And we look, I mean, there are 47 biographies of why Hitler. We can't find out why Hitler. So the best we can do is his Austrian housewife mum, you know. This is ridiculous. It's obviously ridiculous, isn't it? But karma's a hard one for us. Are we communicating, people? Esther, Helene, Patty, Nana, Shari. Oh, there's me. And a few other people, John and Ellen. So any questions? But I need questions. Bruce, I need questions now. Okay, and Manuel, questions, please. Questions, please. Yes.
If hypothetically.
Yeah, go hypothetically. Good. Microphone, please. Yes. What's your name, sweetheart?
Giovanna.
Giovanna. Oh, yes, that's right. Yes.
If, for instance, in the example that you're giving
But
about
you need to
the
be louder,
roach.
darling. I can't hear you.
Okay, in
Better.
the example of the roach.
Yes,
Okay, I see the roach and I want to kill it,
that's right.
but I hold myself back.
Yes.
You were saying that the roach has.
Can you hear her?
It's karma. But
Well,
if
like
I-
all sentient beings do.
right. But if I don't, I stop myself and I don't kill it.
Yeah.
Does it stop the karma for the roach?
No, of course not. I mean, it's still. What do you mean by stop the karma?
Like, you were saying that if I see an animal and I'm disgusted.
Right, that's the karma. It's very much, a lot of that is to do with the karma of the roach from
Right.
having harmed in the past, so that when you see it, you're revolted. That's its karma, very much strongly, yes.
Right. But if I hold myself
And be
back
kind to the
from
roach.
hurting,
Yes, sure.
am I doing something good for that roach?
Well, of course you are, because you're not harming it. I mean, it's
What
little,
does
it's
it
little,
mean?
no, darling, its little mind won't change at all. It's a poor little cockroach. It can't do much.
And
it's
it
still
doesn't
gonna-
liberate her karma?
What?
It still will have the same karma? It doesn't
It's the
change
karma's
its
a-
karma?
Okay. The word karma is just is a very shorthand for the whole process of cause and effect. And every millisecond, a new karma is ripening, and every millisecond, we're creating new karmas. So in general, I mean, forget the roach. Look, you and I are sisters, and we've got some bad stuff between us. We know what it's like with siblings. You know, I mean, one of my sisters, I know she was the only person who could harm me. She'd just look at me wrong. She'd call me cockeye because my eye goes in, you see, and I'd burst into tears. So then that's due to our collective karma from the past. So if you're really practicing kindness and stopping harming me, well, you don't harm me. So you really are the main beneficiary of that, darling, because you're changing your mind. You've decided to stop harming poor Robina. Do you understand? So you're the main beneficiary, sweetheart. And I'm fortunate because you don't punch me in the nose again. But I mean, I've still got to work on my mind. But at least you're the benefit. That's why the kindness, the wisdom, the compassion wing is our own personal practice. Do you understand? It's our practice. So of course you benefit me immediately. But whether I work on my mind is another discussion. The poor cockroach can't, certainly. But at least it got a moment when it didn't get squashed to smithereens by some foot, you know, lucky the cockroach. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay, darling.
Thank
Good.
you.
Okay, good. Yes, someone else. Any other questions? Yes, come on.
This might be a little off topic,
Go
but
on.
is nostalgia attachment?
What, darling?
Is nostalgia attachment?
Oh, totally. Yes. We're bored with the present, so we look into the past. It's like, you know, I find it so repulsive. I mean, this is what people say. You know, when you get like on my phone, they keep popping up with bloody photos and they say, you know, memories. People do things to build a memory. I mean, it's the most bizarre idea, in my opinion. It's so repulsive, I can't even think about it. As otherwise, all we've got is memories. Poor, pathetic old ladies, when you get old, all you got is memories. You've got to look in the past and look at pictures. Remember when you were young. I mean, it's repulsive. It's revolting. It doesn't mean you shouldn't remember lovely things, but the assumption is there's nothing you can do now. Of course it's attachment. Attachment spends all its time thinking about the past and thinking about the future. It can't deal with what's in the reality at the moment. And it craves to hold on to something, to think about, to imagine. That's why people get sad, they get depressed. When you look in the mirror, you see this old double-chinned person. You remember when you were younger. You remember when you did this, and you remember, and we become depressed and sad because attachment is not getting what it wants. Yeah, of course it is. Oh my God. Understand? Nothing wrong with remembering. I mean, all my sisters and me, we always get together. And of course, we're all my brother and my older sister, there's 7 of us, and we're all within about 9 years. So we're all in the same age, basically, now. When we're together, we always remembering past things. We crack jokes, and that's nothing wrong with that. That's lovely. It's called communication. Do you understand? But looking into the past, trying to find something to make us happy, because we don't know what to do with our mind now. That's the saddest thing, you know. You understand? Yeah. We don't seem to think with anything else, isn't it? That's why we build memories. We talk about building memories. Someone else. Yeah, more. Come on. Go on.
We have a couple here on Zoom.
Good. Go.
Okay, sorry, this is very off topic.
Go.
But,
Go.
I saw a documentary where Rinpoche led some people on a pilgrimage in Tibet, and he referred to self-arising images.
Yes, right.
Could you talk about that?
I will. Yes. It's definitely off topic, but there's nothing wrong with it. No, this is kind of interesting. Okay. I know when I first went to Tibet, was in 1987. Rinpoche brought a whole group of like 70 people. They went overland and they just traveled very slowly, went to all the big cities. And I remember I was working at that time for Wisdom Publications in London, 87. Yeah. And I only could have a week off. So I flew to Hong Kong and then joined them in Lhasa for 1 week, right? And it was like they'd been going to all these monasteries and places. And it was going with Rinpoche as your tour guide was like a magical mystery tour. It was unbelievable. You go to a monastery, for example, and then it's all part of the same thing. And you go to a monastery and there was this, let's say you heard about, my first one, I got to Lhasa, and the Potala, the big kind of cathedral, the main cathedral, it's been there for 1,000 years or something, more. And I got there, I knew they were all going to be there doing a particular puja, Lama Zopa, another Lama, and not 87. Yeah, 87. It was 87. Yeah, exactly. And so then I went to the place. First of all, it was so weird because the Chinese communists made them use Beijing time. So it was broad daylight, but it was midnight because they had to use Beijing time. So ridiculous. So it was already weird, because it was midnight, bright light. So and I got to the cathedral, the Jokang, and then they were doing puja, and then they all left, and Lama Zopa started walking along this big ancient big place with kind of chain mail curtains. It was like really it was more than medieval. It was ancient and extraordinary, very weird. It's like being on the moon, actually, being in Tibet back then anyway. So I followed Rinpoche out in this corridor and all these little chapels, all these little concrete chapels with statues in them as you're walking out, and I called in front of me and I said, "Oh, Rinpoche Robina's here, I've arrived, I'm here." So he started spontaneously giving me commentary of the different chapels. And then suddenly he said, "And this statue here, this grew as tall as the caretaker." And I burst into tears. It was just so moving because every story he told was about statues growing, talking, changing, magical mystery things. The stories you can't believe, There's one of the ones is self-emanation, they call it, self-arising. So there's many mountains and places where there are these images of the Buddha. So there's one out of Kathmandu in what's it called? What's that place called out of Kathmandu? Where there's one of a Vajrayogini place. Have you been there?
Yeah.
What's it called? What's it called? Popping. And there's an image there of a self-emanating Tara and one of Ganesh. All these different images. This is so common in Tibet. There are some fully developed images that they've painted that are like utterly beautiful, but they're totally spontaneous images manifesting out of the rock. They're not carved. Right. Now, you got to understand that. What's the logic of that? That sounds ridiculous. You can't believe it, So because you see, what a Buddha is an enlightened mind, pervades the universe. Their job is to benefit sentient beings. So the more you relate to the Buddhas, the closer you, like the Tibetans are totally devoted to the Buddhas, They have total confidence in the presence of Buddhas. They're totally praying all the time and aspiring to be like the Buddhas. So wherever you are, the Buddhas will be there to come. So they're going to manifest in mountains, manifest where you damn well like, statues that will talk. I mean, there's one statue, for example, there's a statues of the 16 Arhats. And one of the stories is of a past Dalai Lama. He was going past blessing each one and he didn't finish. And the last fellow has got his hand out and apparently he said, "What about me?" So he's famous as the statue that said, "What about me?" There's another statue of Tara when a monk fell down the stairs, and they all refer to Tara as mother. And he called out, "Oh, mother." And she said, "I'm here." You hear all these ridiculous, these wonderful stories. It's like magical mystery tour, Statues that walked and talked and grew. It sounds hilarious, but there's logic to understand it. So that's what the self-emanations are. I've got this beautiful picture I took of Tsongkhapa near Ganden Monastery, the first monastery he started in the early 1400s. Beautifully painted. I wish I could find the original negative. It's just beautiful image, and it's totally self-emanation. That's what they say. Of course, if you're a cynical materialist, you won't believe it, but I'm telling you what they say. Okay? Yeah.
It does not.
Microphone.
Yeah.
And I'll get some questions on here now in a minute. Shari and Patty.
I want to ask.
Go, darling, yes.
Where
So if you come on pilgrimage with me
Okay.
in February 2023, you'll see the Tara. Go on. That was another commercial.
Where Geshe Lama Kuncho's relics are at Kopan.
Yes, that's right.
Isn't it true that there's a self-arising Tara in his tongue, from his tongue?
Probably all those things. And also his relics grew and multiplied.
Are they
And
still multiple?
I think so, I've
I
heard.
believe-
Many
I
people have
wanted
said
to
that.
ask you
Yeah,
that.
that's a very common thing as well. Yeah, that's true. No, apparently, yeah. So, okay, now, Patty, what is it, sweetheart?
So it's a question about the karma and the nuns that you talked about who were tortured in China,
Yep.
and how they kept
Not China, darling, in Tibet.
Tibet. I'm sorry, in Tibet by the Chinese.
That's
Okay, so they're more advanced beings. So obviously,
No, fairly regular Tibetans. Not
okay,
advanced, no.
all right, okay,
So common in the minds of Tibetans. You've got to be pretty advanced to have that level, but that's no regular Tibetans, not even holy.
regular Tibet. Okay,
You
okay.
so embedded in their mind.
okay,
You don't have the same view that we have, therefore don't have the anger, which says, why is this happening to me? Do you see my point, Patty?
I do see your point.
Yeah.
I do, so that's a organic kind of. Okay,
They've got to work on it, but they have an explanation of why these things happen. They
Okay.
know why this is their view so strongly. Karma is fundamental to their lives. Do you see?
yes. So therefore, how does that chain get broken? Because if karma is personal and
That's right.
they were tortured by people that they had hurt in the past, now it's switched. So will they have to, I mean, do bodhisattvas?
By them taking responsibility, by them forgiving and knowing the reason, that's how they stop it. That's how exactly why you stop all your karma. That's exactly what practice is. As you work on your mind, as you stop harming others, as you purify your past karma, you purify. That's the point.
Okay.
You're still going to have karma with those people, but it'll manifest in a completely different way.
And not necessarily as them suffering.
They won't suffer again. They can't if you clean it up.
Okay,
They can't
great.
possibly if you clean it up.
Thank
That's
you.
the point. There's still a dynamic between those people, but you can even see how it can also affect other people. You know, in a relationship, if you keep fighting, it grows each other's anger. But if you stop your part, it can't help but also somehow affect the other person, and the karma shifts, you know. I mean, it's ever so subtle how it happens, but this is exactly the point about the first stages of practice. It's cleaning up our own rubbish. We can't make other people clean up. All we can do is do our own. And when we finally realize emptiness, we've cleaned it up. And until we realize emptiness, we haven't cleaned it up.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Shari, yes, darling.
So my question is, when I encounter or when I have encountered someone who perhaps hurts intentionally or even non-intentionally, I tend to walk away and say, I feel sorry for him or I have pity.
Yes, good.
Pity. Is pity then compassion?
Well,
Because
I think
I
it's-
feel better saying, I feel bad for him. There's a reason why he
Yes.
came from his place.
I
So
understand. No, I think pity can be a bit kind of patronizing, but I think I think what you're describing is compassion. If you mean, oh my God, look at how he's harming himself. Is that what you're saying?
harming myself as
No,
harming
if you-
himself. as well as others.
No, darling. If you see this person who harms and you walk away and you say you feel sorry for them, are you saying you have compassion for them because you can see that they are harming themselves?
Yes, they're harming themselves as well as continually harming someone else in that.
Which means they're creating their future suffering.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
the
that's
exact basis. No, that's the exact basis of compassion.
okay.
So not only are they harming themselves right now by being angry and upset, but by harming another, which is what these young nuns said, they know that they have compassion for them. One, because we know we must have harmed them in the past, but two, we know they will suffer unbearably in the future. That's the real basis of real compassion, that they are harming themselves. That's why, if we can see in our own minds, Shari, the little few things we have done to harm other people, first and foremost, we harm ourselves. That we miss completely in the modern world, in the West, when we think about karma.
So when someone has purposely, whether it be boyfriend or job, I always tend to say, I feel sorry for the person, or I feel bad. And I've had people say to me, something wrong with you. You know, he hurt you intentionally. And I prefer to walk away saying, there are reasons I feel sorry for him, whether it be environmental, born with, whatever his
No, but
situation.
are you hearing the karmic explanation of why they do it?
Yes. Yes.
Which is what?
Well, they're doing it. Well, my understanding is they were born with, or can't, they're not aware of their actions. So in a way, they're not aware of how they're hurting someone else. So I feel like I can't attach it personally.
Yeah, but you're missing your component. You're missing your piece, your part of it. This is what the young Tibetan nun said. We had compassion for our torturers because we know we must have harmed them in the past. So the first level of practice, if you're trying to apply karma, is you realize why this person is harming you is because you must have harmed them. And then you take responsibility for that and try to purify it. And then you have compassion for them because all they're doing is harming themselves. That's the way to think with karma. You're sort of saying that. But there's more, because you got to bring yourself into it. Equally, Shari, when good things happen, if a person, is kind to you, instead of just greedily eating it up, think, wow, I must have been kind to this person in the past and I'm so happy for them, because also they're making themselves happy and you are experiencing the fruit of your past virtue. This is a dynamic way of bringing karma and compassion into the relationships.
I got it.
You with me?
Yeah, I got
Good,
it.
Ron. Good. Who else?
I think John has a question. Go
Good,
ahead,
John.
John.
Go, yes, please. Yes. Won't be long. Hang on. Just there. One more here. One more here. One more, darling, here. One more. One more here first. In the computer. He's not hearing me. Wait. I just have to have him, I think. Just a sec. Won't be long. Won't be long. Here.
John, go ahead.
Hi, I'm sorry, a little technical difficulty. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, thank you. So quick question, and once again, I thought we were talking a little off topic. We were taking off topic questions. So my off topic question is, can Robina please talk a little bit about Vajrayogini? I seem to have a lot of devotion to that deity.
No, I can't talk about that here. It's not appropriate, but we're going to be
Okay.
talking about Tantra which day? Tomorrow.
Wonderful.
Well, we're talking about Green Tara tomorrow. That I'll be talking then about in general the deities, and I will then discuss it tomorrow, John. Is that okay?
Thank you so much.
Good job.
Very much okay. Love
Thank
you so much. Bye-bye.
Okay. Yes.
I will interpret for him.
Okay, good.
First of all, peace be upon you and with everyone here.
Yes.
Speaking about compassion, maybe I don't have a deep understanding of what it means. But it seems that the way that it is proposed is a pretension of our ego.
Is it what?
The pretension of our ego.
Pretension.
Pretension.
So it's not real. It's not valid. Is he suggesting it's not valid? The way I'm describing it, yeah? Yeah.
No, I'm just saying that
Uh-huh.
it's a pretension of the ego.
I'm not quite. Okay, that's fine. I'll try and understand what that means. Keep going. I want to
will
hear.
explain why.
I'd like to hear. Yes. So then.
Porque la compasión es una energía que no nos pertenece a nosotros.
Because compassion is an energy that doesn't belong to us, it's divine.
La compasión se manifiesta ella misma a sí misma cuando nosotros no estamos ahí.
Compassion manifests itself when we are not there.
Ahora, un ejemplo,
An example.
un ejemplo. Están en una silla dos personas
Two people are sitting on a chair,
observando una hormiga.
observing an ant.
Y la hormiga
Observing
va a
what?
pasar
An ant.
Okay, good.
La hormiga va a pasar
The ant is going to cross the road.
y una de las personas le pone la mano para que la hormiga dé la vuelta y lo puso en la calle para que no la mate un carro.
One of the persons puts their hand so the ant goes another way and a car doesn't. hit
Uh-huh.
it.
Mhm.
Entonces, vuelve y se sienta el señor
The man sits down again.
y sigue mirando la hormiga.
He continues to look at the ant.
Y la hormiga anda un rato por ahí, de pronto coge de nuevo, se tira hacia la carretera y la pone un carro y la
And
mata.
suddenly the ant runs through the street again and the car kills it.
Uh-huh.
Entonces, el otro le dice al amigo, que
So
hizo
the
la
other
acción,
man tells his friend,
si tú no lo hubieras hecho,
if you hadn't done that,
la compasión de Dios hubiera trabajado.
God's compassion would have worked.
I understand.
Ahora, el segundo ejemplo.
Mhm. Good, I understand. Then,
El
That's it.
segundo ejemplo es este.
And there's another example.
okay, good.
Usted tiene una persona que ama muchísimo,
You have a person who you love very much,
es
Mm.
amada, dentro de usted es amada, no es una pretensión. Usted
somebody who is
desea
loved
bien para esa persona,
inside of you and you wish the best for them.
Mhm.
pero esa persona simplemente está ocupada en lo que quiere hacer.
But that person is busy doing what they want to do.
Usted le explica de cientos de formas,
And you explain 100 ways
a través del silencio,
through silence,
a través de palabras,
through words,
con los sentimientos, con cualquier
through
cosa.
feelings, every way,
Miles de formas.
thousands of ways.
Okay, then,
Hasta que usted se da cuenta que usted no puede hacer nada.
Then you realize you can't do anything.
right.
Si usted entiende que la compasión
Mm.
es
So then-
que el otro se
Yeah.
estrelle él mismo.
And you
Mhm.
understand that compassion is just letting them crash,
It's not what?
Que el
Crash.
otro
Is that
se
what?
estrelle
Letting
él
them
mismo.
crash.
crash.
Okay, so then, so,
He
so
touched himself
I
and
understand.
himself.
So I like your stories. They're very nice. They're very nice. Thank you so much. Very kind. So then do you feel we can develop this compassion of God or not?
Yo siento que si uno está vacío, la compasión de Dios se puede desarrollar.
I feel that if we are empty, God's compassion can be developed within us.
Okay, perfect. That's all I'm saying here. We're calling it the compassion of a Buddha. We don't use the word God here. But exactly the same. What you're describing, the first one is compassion, but without wisdom. And the second one, you try to help, but it doesn't help. So in both cases, when there's wisdom, then the compassion is effective. And if you call that God's compassion, we would call it the Buddhist compassion. Amazing. But I think, so you think we can discuss, can you tell him all that? Or did he understand me? A little bit. But anyway, thank you very much. I understand. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sweetheart. What time is it? 4:30. Time to go home soon. Go, go.
Just a
Yes,
simple-
Graciela.
simple, how to get rid of fear.
By realizing wisdom, realizing emptiness, working on your mind, one step at a time, getting rid of attachment, anger, all the rest. They're the method. Gradually, you get rid of fear that way. Slowly, slowly. Fear is a function of all the delusions. Fear is a function of the delusions. When you only have virtue, there's no fear. Do you understand? Yeah, okay. Time to go home. Any more questions on here? Okay, darling, talk to me. Oh, good, please, yes, please. The man wants to talk again. Let him talk. Go, go. Answer. Thank you, Giovanna.
I have one more question if I could ask.
No, John, there's somebody else talking here. Just a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Friend,
Es un hombre del espíritu viviente
a servant, a spiritual man
por 40 años,
for 40 years,
imparable,
nonstop.
siempre sirviéndole a los demás,
He always serves others,
enseñándole a los demás.
teaches others.
Se muere su esposa,
His wife passes away.
se muere su hermana,
His sister passed away.
se muere su cuñado,
His brother-in-law passed away.
se muere su sobrino.
His nephew,
Se trata de casar, las cosas no funcionan.
he tries to get married again and things don't work out for him.
Entra en un estado de ansiedad.
he goes into a state of anxiety
y tristeza profunda.
and deep sadness.
No puede hacer sus oraciones,
He can't do his prayers.
no puede dormir,
He can't sleep.
no puede parar.
He can't stop.
A todo momento está caminando por todas partes,
He's walking around all
I
the
understand,
time,
yes.
llorando, sufriendo.
crying, suffering.
No funcionan las medicinas.
Medicine is not working for him.
Me llama,
He calls me.
yo oro por él.
I pray for him.
Un consejo para él.
And advice so I can help him.
Good. So that happens. You got better. What do you say?
Consejo para
What's he
él.
say?
He's asking you for advice.
Sometimes I think it's like the example you used before. I think the main advice is to love him and support him, which will give him the courage to slowly find his own potential again and find his own wisdom. I mean, sometimes that's the best thing to do. Just love him. You can't make him go, you can't change him. You just said this before. It's perfect. Love him for who he is. Love him and support him and give him courage. You understand? Time to go home. Yes, one more, darling. Okay. Okay. Okay, people, thank you so much. So kind, everybody. We just began to discuss. First step.
Do we have a time for John's other question, Venerable Robina? or-
Tomorrow,
no?
John. Tomorrow,
ahead.
darling. Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow.
Yeah. So we finish. We think, may compassion grow and grow in the hearts of all. Jang chod sem chogrin poche, ma kie panam ke gyuchik, kie panyampa me payang, gong ne gong du pa ba shok. Gewaji nyu du da, lama sangye drugyune. Drowa chikyang malupa dei sala gopasho. Okay, people. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, darlings. Thank you so much, your friend. Thank you.